Hey guys, it's Coach Matt with Lifelong Recovery. In this video, I want to talk about what healthy relationships look like. If you struggled with substances in the past or are struggling with substances at the moment, then you probably have had some toxic relationships in your past. And maybe your current relationship needs some improvement. The first thing I want to say is that every relationship, even healthy ones, is transactional at its core. What I mean by this is we are getting something from every relationship in our lives, and the person that we're in the relationship with is receiving something also. Sometimes this is not a good thing. In toxic relationships, what we can be getting through that transaction is we can actually be replaying trauma from our childhood. Maybe some of our needs that weren't met in childhood, we're replaying that over and over, trying to get it in the current relationship we have, but we will never get it. And actually there's a thing of kind of staying locked into that trauma. And these are what a lot of toxic relationships are, is it's people playing out their childhood traumas, trying to get what they didn't get in their childhood through their current relationship. But the problem is, if you haven't processed your trauma, if both parties haven't processed their trauma, then it's going to be really hard to get what they actually need and provide that for the other person too. The person who hasn't processed their trauma is going to be very focused on getting what they need out of the relationship and less so of providing what the other person needs. So it kind of creates this toxicity because it's a very selfish nature and it will never be fulfilled. So even though every relationship is transactional at its core, including healthy relationships, what a healthy relationship transaction looks like is support being provided from each party to each other. So what they say is want the other person to win. So what I mean by that is, if I am in a toxic relationship and I haven't processed my trauma, then probably my insecurities are going to be played out in this relationship. I might be jealous of the other person. I may be afraid of this other person leaving me, abandoning me, and therefore I might not want them to succeed, if that makes sense, because I might fear that if they succeed, then they'll perceive themselves as better than me and then want to leave. So that is definitely not a healthy relationship. So kind of a way to look at this, if that is something that you've been struggling with, if you have this maybe fear of abandonment, this fear of not being loved or worthy of being loved, is to just be supportive of the other person in the relationship. If somebody is not responsive to that, your support and your love in the relationship, what that means is that they are looking for a toxic relationship. So you're actually doing yourself a favor if they do leave. So, because you don't want to be in a toxic relationship. So instead of seeing it as like a failure or you're not worthy of love or anything like that, commit to being supportive and loving in your relationships, and also commit to getting what you need out of it. Be committed to voicing what you need out of the relationship and don't settle for less. So again, our own trauma and insecurities can actually sabotage our relationships, and they can get us involved in toxic ones. So if you find a pattern of this, if you find you have a pattern of toxic relationships, there's probably something going on with you that has not been processed, some kind of trauma, some kind of insecurity that is rearing its ugly head in your relationships. And the way to fix that is to actually deal with your trauma. And I would recommend seeking out like a professional therapist for this. Another thing that we can do to make a healthy relationship is think about the golden rule. Think about what you would like for yourself and provide that to the other person. So if you're thinking, okay, for me in a relationship, I want the person to be affectionate. I want the person to be supportive. I want the person to be loving. I want the person to be considerate of my needs and my feelings, things like that. Then give that back. There's a quote from Tony Robbins. He says, if you want love, give it. Okay? So just make sure that you're giving the things that you actually want in the relationship. So just really try and keep the golden rule in mind here when you're thinking about how to have a healthy relationship. The other thing is communication, even when you don't want to. I can tell you this is a struggle for me. There are times that I really don't want to communicate because maybe my ego is bruised or I'm upset or angry. And I definitely struggle with this. But in the end, I always find that the more communication, the better, even if it's difficult, even if it is, the last thing that I want to do, doing it anyway, getting through the hard communication is definitely best. And then another thing that I really struggle with is letting go of my own ego. And this is key for a healthy relationship. And I think most people would agree, people typically in a relationship, they want to be right. They want the other person to see where they are coming from. They want the other person to apologize for being wrong as they see it, if that makes sense. But remember, both parties want this, and both parties are seeing things from a very different lens. If you think about it, we bring everything with us to every interaction that we have with other people. So in a relationship, I'm bringing all my perspectives, my thoughts, my ideas, my beliefs. I'm bringing the way that I see the world into basically every interaction in a relationship, and so is the other person. And what we expect from the other person is for them to see things the same way that we do, and it's just not going to happen. There's no way that they're going to see things through the exact same lens that you see things. So the trick here is to try and put yourself in the other person's shoes. Stop thinking about the way that you see it and why the other person is wrong, and start thinking about how they see it and what you may have done that caused them pain or hurt their feelings. And I'm not saying I'm not saying to be a doormat here. We have to also be concerned with our own needs, and we should encourage the other people to see it from our perspective as well. But do not just get locked into seeing things the way that you do it. Really try and put yourself in the perspective of the other person's shoes and understand why they are upset, why they're angry, why their feelings were hurt. The more that you do this, it's really shedding the ego. The more that you do this, it really encourages the other person to let go of their ego too. So don't worry about being right. Don't worry about winning the argument. Don't worry about having the upper hand. Just worry about the status of the relationship, the health of the relationship. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you like this, if this was helpful, I have another video about repairing trust in relationships, because obviously if you struggled with substances, there's probably some trust that has been damaged. I know for me and pretty much all my relationships when I was struggling with substances, the trust had been damaged. So check that out if you think that will help. Also, please consider giving this a like and subscribing if you feel like this video did help you. Thank you guys. God bless.